next week what's going on with that. Okay, we've been studying Jesus' ministry and the different things he did. One of the things that he taught was that if we try to keep our life, we will lose it, but if we lose our life, we will keep it. Does that make any sense?
Nope.
No. What he was teaching was that if we fuss and fight for our way, our rights, our life, that it will slip through our hands. And we will eventually lose our life and lose our salvation. Out from under the screen. Josh, out from under the screen. But if we give our life to him, so that we don't own our life anymore, he owns it. He will give us life so full of joy and abundant that we can't even imagine it. And I've seen this happen in people's lives. When they quit their own plans and say, God, just you decide, you guide me, God blesses them so abundantly with what they couldn't have even imagined or planned for. He also taught us that it doesn't do any good if you fuss and you fight and you work and you gain the whole world's worth of wealth or power or whatever it is you're looking for. But if you lose your soul, what did you gain? Nothing. Because what good would all the money in the world do you if you go to hell? You can't take your money with you to hell. It'd just burn up. Right? Yeah, pretty much like that. But if we put our trust in God, he gives us everything we need, and honestly, most of what we want, and we get heaven on top of that. And if he also taught that if we are ashamed of God, and we don't admit that we know God, then he'll be ashamed of us. But if we brag about God, tell people about God, well, he's going to brag about us and talk about us. When he was, at some point during his teaching, he went up on a mountain and he took 3 of his disciples, Peter, James, and John, with him up to the mountain. And he was talking to them, and while he was talking to them, the Bible says a cloud settled on the top of the mountain. And the disciples saw Elijah and Moses standing beside Jesus. Now, I don't know exactly how they knew that was Elijah and Moses, because they didn't have pictures of them, because cameras weren't invented yet. But maybe God just revealed it in their heart, that that was Elijah and Moses standing there with Jesus, talking with Jesus. This really confused the disciples. They didn't know what to make of that. So Peter said, well, Jesus, we should build a house for each of you up here. Because he didn't know what else to say. So that's the first thing popped in his head. God spoke and said, this is my beloved son. Listen to him. And then Moses and Elijah weren't there anymore, and it was just Jesus and the 3 disciples again. Jesus told them, don't tell anybody what happened until after I rise from the dead. That really confused them. They had no idea what he meant by rise from the dead. What does that mean? Huh? They figured it out later. After he rose from the dead, they figured out that now we get to talk about it. And they did talk about it and wrote about it, and that's why we have it in our Gospels. So that's kind of a neat story. And it ties the Old Testament with Elijah and Moses together with the change that Jesus brought so that we can all be part of his kingdom. Let's sing a song.
Everybody wears sandals back then?
They probably did in this part of the world. It's really warm, and sandals are a lot easier to make than leather shoes, especially. They didn't have rubber, like the bottom of your shoes are made with rubber. They didn't have rubber yet, and so it was just a lot easier to make sandals. So whenever the weather was good, that's the kind of shoes they would have worn. But the flannel is somebody's idea, recent idea of what things might have looked like. It's not always exactly accurate. Our song today, get all excited and go and tell everybody, because that's what Jesus told us to do. To get excited and tell everybody you know about Jesus. Okay? Get all excited, go and tell everybody that Jesus Christ is King. Get all excited, go and tell everybody that Jesus Christ is King. Get all excited, go and tell everybody that Jesus Christ is King. Jesus Christ is still the King of